Hello, welcome to Flower Juice. My name's John McDonald and today we're going to make a Christmas wreath. Now this is a wreath really for going on a door for the front of your house. And I wanted to show you how to put one together. Now there's lots of different ways you can do that. You could use a pre-made ring. That could be a natural ring or it could be a foam ring. The danger with the foam rings is, well, they're not very environmentally friendly, but they're also, things will just blow out of them. So basically a wicker ring is maybe a better idea for home use. And they're actually quite easy to make. So I've collected some twigs. Now this was just basically a kind of like wild thing that was growing in our hedge, and it's put out lots of shoots this year, so I've just basically trimmed them off and I've got a selection of twigs. There's the odd leaf on it, but they're just coming off. And what you need is you need some twigs that are quite flexible, so like a cornice would be ideal, or a willow. I don't actually know what this is, but it has got that flexibility, so that's fine. So we're going to make a base using twigs. And then I've got a nice selection of different winter foliages. So we've got some ivy and different greens. And these I've really chosen because they're going to last really, really well. I've also got some moss, which I just collected out the garden. We may use that. I don't know if I've got enough to do like the whole wreath. The good thing with the moss is as we put that in, so if we make our base with our twigs and then we add some moss, it allows moisture to be held in the wreath, which will help keep your wreath lasting longer. And then decor-wise, the thing that I really want to use are these beautiful cones, and I just think these are gorgeous. So we're going to make quite a natural ring. We might use some ribbon. We'll see. And then maybe for some highlights we might add the odd star or something. And I'm going to try and make this so that it's really environmental, in the sense that it's more natural and it could just go in the compost. With the cones, I have wired them, but they're actually really nice. So if I was putting this into the compost, I would probably take the cones out to reuse them. So let's get started with our ring. Now, I'll just take some of these. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to tie one or two together. And this is just going to create our circle to start. And then really our other bits we can just weave. Probably want another one. You can use wire. So if you are going to put this into a place where it's going to get wet a lot and it's really going to be subject to the elements, the problem with string is it's going to rot. So where my door is, it's nicely protected, there's a bit of an overhang, and it's not going to be soaking wet all the time, which is fine. So I'm not worried about the string rotting. And to be honest, it only needs to last for a few weeks. So if you want to make a base like this and you want it to really last, then you're better to use wire. So like a real wire would give you some strength. So as you can see, we've created basically a circle. You're going to have to manipulate things and see how they go. And then we're just going to come in with our other twigs and weave them in. Yeah, this is never going to be straightforward, to be honest. And I think this is the type of thing, you're not going to put this together in 10 minutes. This is going to take a little bit of time. Right, so let's just give that a bit of a bend. If the ends are too strong, just leave them sticking out what we'll do is we'll go and trim all these towards the end anyway. Now, sorry about the noise. The other thing as well is making a Christmas wreath is quite messy. Do not wear your best clothes. Do not... Nah, this is gonna... Yeah, you're gonna make me look stupid. But I did toy with making this in advance, and then I thought, you probably want to see how I do it. So if I make it in advance, then you'll go, oh, I wish we'd seen it. And now you can see it and you can have a little bit of a laugh. Because as you can see, it's not necessarily the easiest thing. But what you'll find is at the beginning, something like this will be quite awkward. It'll not kind of sit as you might want for a little while. But then you'll find as you add volume, it'll start to come together. So I'm trying to be consistent as well. So we're always going in the same direction with our twigs. And as long as you are consistent, you're going to get a nice look. So, could of course make this the main feature of your wreath. The fact that it is actually a twiggy wreath. You might want to wear gloves when you're doing this. I think if you were making a lot of these, you would find that you would just get better and better and better. But like most people, I'm not making these regularly. And that's okay. But you can see it's starting to come together. Now, the other thing I would say is if you're going to have this inside, you'll find that this will dry out. So it'll dry out and it'll start to loosen. And that could be a bit of a problem. Basically, it's going to get slack. So So if it does go slack, then that's not so good. Now, where I'm from, traditionally we make wreaths on a metal frame, and then we moss the frame, and these can be done in advance. And a lot of these really were not so much for going on a door, but more as a remembrance item. And yeah, they really are sore to do if you've got a lot to do. As you can see, the more material we add, the better the shape is becoming. And I think it would be quite nice to make a really big one that's just twiggy, but I just couldn't reach the rest of the bush, to be honest. Right. So I think we need to have a wee tidy up here, just to see what we've got. So we're getting there. We're getting a better shape. And the other thing as well, just be careful that you don't have thorny material. That's not going to work. So really the priority is to have bendy. If you are someone who makes these all the time, I'd love to hear any tips or suggestions and share them with other people. Because the more that we share information and techniques, then the better for all of us, to be honest. It's not a case of, well, I know something and you shouldn't because I want to sell you it. I think it's sometimes I might want to not make it, I might want to just buy it, but at least if I know what I'm buying with more detail, I can make more of an informed choice as well. So I could go into a shop and say, can I get a Christmas wreath for my door, but I don't want it to contain metal, or I don't want it to contain foam, or I want it all natural, or whatever best suits your purpose is really the ideal situation. So, I just want to really use these up, so looking to see if there's a bit that's a little bit weaker. that's probably good enough. And this is part of my exercise for the day. So now we're just going to go around, give it a bit of a trim. So you can cut basically these bigger stems just off on a nice angle, and that helps keep the shape of the ring. And these little bits can come off. So we've got our wreath ring. And as I say, this is fresh, so this is going to shrink if you have it somewhere warm or inside and it starts to dry out. If it's going outside, it's going to be great for the Christmas period. Basically, there's moisture in the air, and that'll just stop it going dry and looser. But that is our base. So one thing I want to do just now then is add a tie, basically, for hanging it. So it's easier maybe to do this at this point. I'm never very good with knots. I really want that just to be at the back. But yeah, that's pretty straightforward. We've got our ring. Now, as I say, I want to put some moss on it. And I want the moss really just to give us some moisture. So I went out into the garden and I got some moss, and this was really just out of the grass. So first thing we're going to do is just start with some string. And we're going to really just go around binding this on. Now, this is where you really do want to just wear gloves. But this means that when you have your wreath and it's on the door, if it's possible, then you can give it a water. And when I say give it a water, just take it off the door, stick it in a bath of water, and let it have a soak for an hour. And that will help keep your wreath going for the whole winter. So this is why I wasn't too worried about the look of the ring. The ring is really just a mechanic, really, to hold the other materials. And please get your moss from somewhere that is yours, or is somewhere where it grows really, really well, and you're not going to cause damage to the actual environment. I remember once going to the west coast of Scotland, and we saw an area that had all the moss lifted by someone who was probably going to use it for wreaths, and it just was so damaged. It was really shocking. So if you haven't got moss, you can actually order it and get it in your local florist. They will be able to get it for you. And if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world. In Europe, it's very popular to use straw as a base for wreaths, which I think is really environmentally friendly. The only thing is they tend to use fishing line to bind it, which it's a great idea, but then you can't compost it. I suppose you could burn it, but don't damage moss if you can help it. You've got to be conscious of the environment. So like these twigs, as I say, I've got from the hedge. If I didn't use them for this, they would be getting basically stripped down and trimmed in the spring anyway to keep the hedge tidy. So they were going to get cut. They're just basically this year's growth. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of holding it on with my hands and working in a logical fashion. This is why I didn't really get dressed up today. I just thought, this is quite messy. So there's no point in putting on your best for doing this. In fact, probably been better wearing an apron. So we're just working our way around. This is actually quite a big wreath. But this moss will make a difference for how the wreath will perform and last. Now I can see on Facebook and social media, a lot of people are talking about Christmas wreath workshops. They are great to go to, especially if you go with friends. But if you can't persuade your friends, there's always going to be other people there and you're going to have good fun. And it just means that you can make something that's yours and you can personalize it. So it is something that I enjoyed teaching, and I think the feedback I got from people was that they really enjoyed coming along and learning. And where I worked, we did the first one we ever did. The next year we did it again, and it was the same people. And I said, but you know how to make your own wreath. Why are you back? And they said, well, we're just back because we really enjoyed it. We enjoyed all being together and being sociable. So, just because you know how to make your wreath doesn't mean that you can't still do it with friends, basically. It's more fun. So, as you can see, we're nearly there. So the traditional wreaths in Scotland, anyway, are on a metal frame and they're mossed. So basically the moss is bound on like this, but you don't have a network of twigs inside, you just have pure moss. And that's fine. But that means that you generally then wire all your materials to put onto the base. So that is one way to do it. But what we're going to do today is we're just going to keep binding our materials onto the wreath. So I think I need a little bit more room here. So as I say, I've got different materials and we're just going to work our way around and bind them on. And that actually is by far the easiest way to make a wreath is just literally tying them on like this. So I went out to the garden and I collected some different pieces of basically winter foliage. And we can just work our way around with that, including little bits of ivy. A lot of you comment that I like to use foliage, and I really do. I think that's maybe from living in Scotland. We had lots of lovely greenery and nature, and I think, I think that's maybe where I get that inspiration from. But it does look more natural, and it makes things more interesting. So, we can angle these in, so just angling it so that it follows a line, and even that way. And we're just wanting to make sure that we catch the stem as we go. So as you can see, we've got our structure below, we've got our moss, and we've got our covering basically with our fresh foliage. Now, I was thinking I might add these in as I go, which could be quite interesting, rather than waiting until the end. So I'm afraid this is going to take a little bit of time, but we'll do it. If you want to skip ahead, then that's not a problem. But essentially the technique is going to be the same. And as I said, instead of using string, you could use like a real wire if you wanted. That would work quite well. The other thing as well is just put some music on. The other day I was with some friends and we were doing some flowery things, and we just had some Christmas tunes on, and it was great. It was really good fun. So make a coffee, get your gloves on, and just get creative, basically. That's what I really love about Christmas, is it's such a good time for making things you wouldn't normally make, to be honest. And maybe using materials like this that you wouldn't necessarily want to use at other times of the year. So this is like your dreaded hedging that takes over. I'm lucky that I've got a nice big hedge, but wow, it's such a lot of work. Now the other thing is, don't let your string open right up. If you end up with loads of string kicking about, it's just going to get messy. So you could add lots of different types of material to this if you wish. Eucalyptus, fern, really the beauty is in the fact that it's a real mix of materials. Right, so you get the idea of our ring. that's a good bit. And that's another thing, the bigger the bits, the quicker it'll go. And you want to put this on quite firmly. Don't pull it so tight that it breaks, but you want it to be firm. Right, I think what we'll do is we'll pause it there and I'll complete the ring and we'll come back to it in a minute. So give me a second. Okay, so we're back and we've got to the end, and really what you want to do is just make sure that you tuck under the bits that you already had and hide that join really. So it's not too bad. And what you can do is you can take a piece of the string and tie a loop in it, then go round with your loop, and that gives you two ends that you can then tie off. So I've tried to do this quite quickly because we were making a video, but you've got all the time in the world. If you are going to make one, give yourself a good hour and a half, couple of hours. That way you can make sure that everything's really nicely covered. You can bring a little bit more material down these lower edges, which would be quite nice. But essentially, this is what is giving us our wreath. And I really love these big cones. I just think they look absolutely super. So what's nice about this wreath is it's essentially an environmentally friendly version. The only thing that's in it that's not fresh is the wire on the cones. And we can take that out when we come to take it to bits. We could maybe even rescue our ring that we've got. But that is essentially a basic wreath, and then it's up to you what you want to do to finish it off. Now, I think I will do like a big ribbon, and I'm going to need a bit of wire. So a couple of wires. So what I want to do is make a bow that's going to go down here. So I want some big tails, and we're just going to make a loopy bow. I call this a chocolate box bow. I don't know if it's got a different name, but that's what I call it. It reminds me very much of when I was little and growing up, and we had boxes of chocolates, and they always seem to have these double loop bows. And the best way to do this is with a wire. So I'm just using a double wire. And then actually, that's a good idea. With a moss frame, you can really skewer through. If you use a nice strong wire, you can skewer through. With this, it's probably better to wind it round. So, to put one wire under, one wire over, and then join them. So, I've got two ends at the back, and I'm just twisting them together. And then any snaggy ends like that, you want them to go into your actual base. You don't want any jaggy ends sticking out. And I've also got one or two of these wooden stars. But when you make a wreath like this, you make it to suit yourself. So I'm quite into the natural kind of look. I think it looks really good. If you're more of a sparkly person, then add your own sparkles. It's not a problem. I mean, you could even add things like dried fruit. There's lots of different things. This is just a cold glue. So the cold glue is probably the easiest for adding these stars in. And it takes a minute or so just to go off. So there we go. We've got our natural, homemade, bespoke Christmas wreath for going on the door. You could put another bow here. I quite like just the big bow as a focal point. I think that works really well. You could add other things in there as well. You could add some nice berries. The holly berries look great. So there you go. As I say, it's going to take you a little bit of time. You're going to need quite a lot of materials as well. As you saw, I had basically a crate of ends of greenery, and we needed a small crate of moss as well. So it will take a bit of material to make, but there's no reason why you can't make your own Christmas wreath. And then that way you can really have something that's bespoke to yourself and personal. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I know this has been a longer video than usual, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you haven't already subscribed, then click here to subscribe. We've got new videos every week, and we'd love you to join us for more designs. So until then, stay safe, and we hope to see you soon.